Hello, and welcome to Wwise Up On Air. I'm super excited to join you today for this hands-on edition of the Wwise 22.1 public preview. We're going to go into detail about what's involved in that public preview. I can't wait to show you what we've been working on. There's some exciting things. My name is Damian Kastbauer. I'm the software product manager here at Audiokinetic. And let's get going. So we'll talk a little bit about Audiokinetic and what we're doing here. We'll talk about feedback that we get from the community and how we've worked with that. And then we'll start digging into the public preview, talking about the editing workflow. I've brought some coworkers and friends along to help explain that process of arriving here today with that. And then we'll go into the other features in the Wwise authoring and sound engine that we're releasing as part of this public beta. So stick around. We got a lot of cool things coming up, and I'm just going to dive right in. Which is to say that at Audiokinetic, we're always listening. As game players, as people who appreciate what is happening at runtime in experiences that people are creating with interactive and dynamic audio, we got our ears on and we love what we're hearing. The way that people are channeling interactive and dynamic sound in these experiences is inspiring to us. And so we are always playing and have our ears on cool tricks that folks are pulling off, or the sublime illustration of these virtual worlds that are being created, and just the fun stuff that people are doing with Wwise. And so that speaks directly to how we're listening to the community as well. Whether it's speaking directly with Wwise developers, talking to folks who are new to Wwise and how they approach learning about game audio from an education standpoint, or just folks out and about in the communities, both online and in person. We're listening to their experiences with Wwise as they continue to move forward and author these rich sound experiences. And there's a lot of ways that we're communicating with the community, whether it's reporting a bug through the Wwise Launcher, engaging as part of the Wwise community Q&A, through our support channels, or by taking a survey through the launcher. We are listening to people as they're carrying across their experience with Wwise and how they're using it, and we're driving that right back into development. There's all these different ways that we're listening to the community, through the games and experiences that you're creating, through these feedback channels that we have in place for you to be able to communicate with us about your experience using Wwise. And additionally, I just want to talk about some of the direct improvements that we've made over the past few releases in response to that feedback. So with that in mind, we've got in 2019.2, we had a huge feature release of the way that you profile in Wwise. We released the filter toolbar and presented the information from your game when you were connected to it. And what we heard from folks immediately following that is that we lost some functionality along the way. And we're thankful for folks who raised their hands early and brought that awareness to us. And we worked quickly to be able to return some of that functionality, as well as adding some accessibility around how people were choosing to profile. Similarly, our spatial audio workflows just continue to get better and better. We optimized and automated a lot of workflows across our integrations. And, what we heard was, that some of the documentation was not as clear as it could be. And so we worked to reformat that documentation. It's available right now on the web and has been restructured to bring clarity. Additionally, we brought those spatial audio paradigms and workflows into the Wwise adventure game as part of a release in 2020. And as we continued to evolve in 2019.2, we brought in the event-based packaging feature. Now, this came with some great opportunities for people to leave behind manually created sound banks, but it came with some challenges across the different ways that people manage their assets in Unreal. And so we've continued to improve on that release since 2019.2 with the help of feedback and towards stability. And another piece of that evolution will be landing as part of the 22.1 workflow later on this year. So then let's step into 2021. Object-based audio. We restructured the way that routing works in order to deliver this rich content format to an endpoint that supports 3D audio. As part of that, we improved the way you understand what's happening at the bus level and a whole heap of audio object profiling in there so you could understand this new rich delivery format. And what we heard along the way is, hey, this is super new. We don't really get it yet. So please bring us this education. And we worked hard to create blogs, live streams, videos, and we will continue to support that feature over time. The most recent support of that came in fall of last year when we released the Wwise Audio Lab for 2021, which is reauthored with audio objects throughout the pipeline, giving you access to it hands-on in the menu inside of Unreal, and just presents you with an opportunity to understand with your eyes and ears this new format and what's possible in a Windows environment. And so we continue to evolve by listening to the feedback from folks as we continue to work on Wwise. And this is a joy for me to continue to participate in that evolution as someone who had worked as a technical sound designer previously in my career. I was always engaged with this evolution of Wwise, and it's great to be participating in it. And I find great joy in involving the Wwise community and community of Wwise developers in that process today. So let's talk about 22.1. We're here today to talk about the public preview, which we released last week. If you haven't got it yet, go grab it from the launcher. And later this summer, we'll be having a second beta that will focus specifically on our game integrations. And so you can keep an eye and ear out for that in the future. And that, of course, leads up to our full release later on this year, which will be a production-ready version of Wwise for your developments. So like I said, jump in, log in, and download this new beta through public preview through the Wwise Launcher. You can grab it by selecting Special from the Install New Version dropdown. And for the first time, we've unblocked your access to this through the launcher. So take advantage of that and try out the cool stuff we're going to talk about today. But do not migrate your production to a preview or beta version of Wwise. This will end badly for you and just won't be fun for anyone. So, put your hands, put your ears, put it in your workflow in a non-destructive way so that you can experience these new features, but don't ship with it. Don't plan to ship with it, and keep it separated from your development pipeline. And with that, I welcome you to the Wwise 2022 public preview. Great to be here today. Thanks for everyone in the chat for sticking around. Good to see some folks, and let's go. So, what does it mean to be a new editing workflow? Well, we're going to go right into that. But first, I want to introduce two of my coworkers to the live stream here. And so, without further ado, please welcome Bernard Rodrigue and Remi McGill. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi there.
All right. Well, I am so glad to have landed here with you both today, talking about the public preview of 22.1. But first, let's introduce yourselves, and then we can take it away.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Bernard. I'm a director, Wwise Experience, and my team, we take care of improving the Wwise experience, making it better over version, and over the last year we have been working on this new beta that we will be showing today. I'm super excited.
Thanks, Bernard.
Hi. I'm Remi McGill. I'm a senior user experience designer on Wwise. So I look at a lot of the user experience, how should things work, and I work with the development team to try to make good stuff.
Yeah, well, and I work with you both on the daily. It's always a pleasure. And, the conversations we're having are just inspiring because we're always weaving in these different ideas, different experiences, and things that people bring back to us as they're working in their development pipelines with Wwise. And I think that's why it's so exciting to arrive with this evolution of the editing workflow, because it really hits everyone where they live. And that's right squarely in the user interface of Wwise. So, but let's talk a little bit about how we ended up here. And by that, I mean, let's set the Wayback Machine to 2018. And even before that, as you're preparing for that, this idea of evolving the editing workflow comes from these conversations that we're having. It comes with our passion for Wwise and what we imagine for people, and that passion drove you to creating some mock-ups and prototypes and bringing them to the Game Developers Conference in 2018. And you sat down with a bunch of folks. I was thankful to be one of them, even before my time at Audiokinetic. But let's, talk about that process of arriving to GDC at that time. What did you prepare? How did you prepare for those initial conversations?
Yeah, sure. So back in 2018, we had been listening to people concerns, suggestions, feedback, and we had a lot of ideas that we wanted to test and present. And so when we came up with those ideas, we did some interviews with people, over 15 people, and we presented our ideas to see how people react to them and how they felt about it, what was the most important thing to them about our vision. And this series of interview resulted in a better it giving us a better idea where to go next.
Yeah, so it kind of focused, and I remember being in the room with the two of you at the time, talking through these mock-ups, and you had a kind of a click through for people to actually put their hands on. So it was more than just, mock-ups and screens. It was kind of okay, I pressed this and then I pressed that, and how does that feel? And And like you were saying, a validating experience, as well as helping to shed light on other parts of the process that people valued. So carrying that forward, into development over these last years leading up to the release of 22.1, let's talk about some of these other aspects that we put in place with regards to mock-ups and prototypes. And, Remi, can you run it down for us, the kind of things that we're doing to try and give people context as we're asking questions about the editing workflow?
Yeah, sure. So we kind of start any one of these projects with kind of like the big ideas. What is this? Well, first, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? And doing interviews with our customers. Even before we did any of these mock-ups, to really understand what their needs are, what their pain points are, what they're running into. And then making the mock-ups is a good thing for us to, before we get into any code, get a feeling of this thing that we're trying to create. Does it make sense? Is it completely the wrong direction? And how to, at least get, before we invest a bunch in development, get a feeling of, what the right direction is. And so, and they also sort of provide a way for all the developers to, get into the same headspace of, well, this is what we're talking about. And, this part makes sense. This part doesn't make sense. Can you explain that? Why do we need that? Kind of thing, which is all great questions.
Yeah, because talking about these concepts can get super abstract, and having a mock-up, right or wrong, or in the right or wrong direction, can really help people identify those aspects and speak to their opinions on them.
Yeah, it kind of helps, bring everybody into the same room, and because we all have our imaginations of what we imagine something to be or not, and trying to get everybody's, not thinking about, but in terms of the issue that we're talking about and what we're thinking might solve it, what is that thing that we're talking about? Because like what I've noticed is you can have a conversation about something and have 3 people think you're talking about the same thing. But you're not. So the visuals help to really coalesce and say, well, no, that's not what I thought we were doing,
Yeah.
and which is great. But that's only really, that only gets you to one stage, and then the next stage is really saying, okay, well, this is a good direction, and starting to do prototyping. And Bernard made some amazing prototypes to start investigating this direction of sort of a center oriented workflow, object, context of object being kind of the center of your workflow.
Yeah.
So we started doing those prototypes, and that allows us to, see what things in the mock-ups made sense, what doesn't make sense, what new problems have we uncovered, and help us figure out what are the big things that we're trying to solve the best way.
Exactly. And now, Bernard, you've been with Audiokinetic for how many years?
2005, so
yeah.
A lot of years.
It's a lot of years, and you inherently, I feel like, embody the user experience. And so as you're taking in this feedback from people at Audiokinetic, from people in our Wwise developer network, you're pushing this into the prototype. Do you want to talk a little bit about that process?
Sure, because as Remi mentioned, the mock-ups that we were doing, they had a limit. And so the prototype goal was to play with them and see how the interaction between the different features of Wwise is working, or is it working, or is it not working? So what we did is we presented the prototypes to different people, and we asked them to execute some task, like create a container, create an event, drag a bus into the output bus field. So how do they react to the change that we did? How do they feel about it? And we observed, and and then we iterated on the prototype. We did some change. We saw how the change were better, worse, and actually we there's a lot of idea we had that we just got rid. We trash, or we just iterate, and we made it better.
Yeah, and this
so
is...
it was a
Keep going, yeah.
super iterative process.
Yeah, and this is over the course of inviting groups of Wwise users to the conversation. And sometimes it was in the early form of mock-ups. Sometimes we were able to put their hands on the prototype. And it was really important to have both experienced and inexperienced people put their hands on these tools and workflows. And we leveraged both the internal developers at Audiokinetic, folks who know it inside and out, and then new folks to the company as they're onboarding. And again, we're all, as you mentioned, continuously weaving that back into the iterations of the prototype. And in the case of some of our user groups, like calling people back to the table. Okay, well, you saw this 6 months ago, but here we are 6 months later. We've done all kinds of stuff. Like, how is it now? Did we address some of the concerns that you raised? And it was really a joy to work with folks who had strong opinions, like don't take that away from me, and make sure that it can still do this. Like, I remember those conversations really driving the work that we were doing. So, and that brings us to today. Here we are at the public preview. It's available now. We're looking for your feedback because, again, this is a workflow that lands everywhere that you are. So please find a way to get us that feedback. There's a survey in the launcher for the version when you install it, accessible in the menu. And I think without further ado, let's see the new editing workflow. Are we ready for it? Okay, let's go.
Yes.
All right, so the Wwise authoring has been reoriented around a tab-based workflow. So we now have tabs in the center focus of the default designer layout. And as you navigate through your hierarchy, this tab will automatically update based on the type of object you have in focus that you have selected. And right now it's recycling the same tab for that selection as we navigate through. And I'm also going to highlight another feature of this. This is the Project Explorer search here at the top. And I'm getting started on my day today, and I know I need to dig into some magic in my project. And here I'm just using the Wwise Adventure game that's been opened in the latest version. And I can see that as I'm typing, the Project Explorer hierarchy filters or searches for the string of text I've typed. And it returns those results here in yellow across the different tabs where it finds that string, including here in my actor mixer hierarchy. Okay, great. I've got that. So I can expand that and see, okay, I've got a few blends. Well, I just really need to work on this impact here. Change the volume of that a little bit. I can condition it. Yeah, let me crank the pitch for that down. Great, that makes sense. I don't need to do anything else there. I got this blast fired. You know, I want to keep this around for a little while and come back to it. So I could come up here to the tab. I can keep it open or, you know, hold it in place there. And meanwhile, I can move on to the magic charge sound, make any changes, and a new recycle tab automatically opens for me. So I can make my changes here. I actually need to get at the sort. Okay, so here I am at the sound in my project, and by default, we bring the editor for that object type into this secondary editor. So you can see now I have the source editor here, which can be expanded and collapsed using the editor tab at the bottom. And I need to trim just a little bit off the front, a little bit off the back. And that's all I needed to do with that one. So I'm going to back out of that now at this point. So I can close that tab. Cool. Come back to my Magic Blast. I need to check on the positioning for this. It's not working the way that I expect it. I need to add a new attenuation to it. Let's see. I guess I'll just add a new one. And from here, I get access to the attenuation for this sound right here in my editing tab panel. So the things that I need for my object are all contained within the tab, in the center focus, and across the primary panel and secondary panel. Okay, we're off to the races. So I'm done with my magic stuff. I'm going to keep that there for now, but I want to head into music next. And for folks who are used to the music editing workflow in Wwise, you know that usually you'll end up changing layouts at this point in order to get the default editor for what you want to work on. But today, with the new editing workflow in 22.1, we automatically present you with the music editor for the type of object that you're working on. So I've selected a segment here, and again in the editing tab panel, my music editor is presented here by default, and I can get right to work at making any changes to the music here in order to get it sounding just right. And this is also true of the music switch container, again giving you access to the editor for that object in the hierarchy. And this just works everywhere you expect it to in the Project Explorer. So jumping from here, I could go into the sessions to my Soundcasters and open up my Creatures Soundcaster to be able to audition the different enemies and their sounds. I can jump over to my mixing session, and again, maybe I need to want to keep this mixer around because I'm going to do some mixing. I can double click on that tab to keep it in place. I can also just pull it out here like you'd expect to do and put it off to the side so that I can get into it later. Or dock it back where it belonged. Maybe I want to put it next to what I'm working on so that I always have access to it. All of this is accessible and within reach for you with the new editing workflow. Didn't talk much about the back button and forward button, but again, a nice way to be able to navigate your previous selections or move in and out of your objects. What else should I try?
Did you show the music?
Got the music
You did,
down here with these great playlists.
And what if you want to have the music segment editor full screen?
Great. So I'll jump into one of my music segments. I got a nice one here that I've been working on. And if I want this full screen, I can just use the expand button here on the side, get that zoomed in, and we now have cursor zoom using the mouse wheel as well. So
Can you make it bigger?
can I make it big?
Pop out.
Yeah, let's do it. So right-clicking here or using the pop-up button here puts it into its own floating view.
I think the other interesting thing to show would be the events and sounds workflow, where you can select a bunch of sounds and select events and keep both of them open, which has been
Cool.
sometimes a struggle in the past.
Great. To do that, let's bring in a second Project Explorer. And this is a workflow that we hear about often from developers that are really moving in their workflows. And you'll see that up here in this default Project Explorer, there's a number 1. And in the second Project Explorer that I just created from the Views menu, there's a number 2. And this is part of what we've renamed as a sync with selection channel. And so now other object tabs that are part of a tab group that have that same selection channel will be in sync with these Project Explorers. So I'll open up an event here and get that into its own spot here in the center focus. And up here I have the ability to sync this tab group with a specific selection channel. So now anything that I focus on over in this Project Explorer will go to this object tab group, while things that I select over in this Project Explorer will end up on the left. So this gives the ability to, okay, well, I want to bring this wizard dialogue line into the ambient crystal hum so that every time the crystal's humming, the wizard is talking about how awesome crystals are. And it's all there, accessible, and supporting the different workflows for people at different times of their project. We really think selection groups are going to be important for people who have workflows already in place that they want to maintain and extend what is presented by default.
Can you show how to add an effect and edit effects?
Yeah, let's do it. So here we are. I got this arcade machine. It's pretty cool. But let's make it even cooler by adding in a, what should we add in?
Time stretch.
Yeah, cool. Let's put a new time stretch in there. And again, you saw that with the addition of that, automatically, I got a new editing tab for my time stretch effect down here. I can make changes to it, and it's all ready to go. If at some point I want to pop that out, I have access to it here at the effect, as well as down here in the editing panel. And at any point, if I need to get it out of the way, I can.
Can you pop it out and drag it to the tab group on the right, maybe?
Yeah. Great. So now my time stretch properties for this effect are accessible to me at any time. I can change the attenuations if I need to, and still have access to the properties for that time stretch. It's cool. Good idea. So we can dig deeper into some of these different areas as we keep going through the presentation, but this is what the new editing workflow feels like. And when I say that, what I mean is we want you to put your hands on it and let us know how it feels for you in your development pipeline. So grab that public preview from the launcher and let us know. Cool. So just a brief summary then of what we saw. We've got object tab groups and object tabs in the center focus of your default workflow. This brings the information right into where you want it during your development. Those object tabs are broken into two different sections. The primary editor up top, which right now has all of the properties for that object, and the secondary editor, which right now presents you with the editors available for that object in the context of it. And we think that by centralizing these editors and giving you this contextual navigation of the Project Explorer with the affordance to use things like selection groups to extend and expand and enhance your workflows, that this will make your production much faster and expand on your creative affordance. Anything else to add on that, folks? Feels good. I've been enjoying it. Talk more about what I've been doing with it later, but in the meantime, I just wanted to give a big thanks to all of the developers at Audiokinetic who have worked on this project or had their ears bent by us over the course of development and helped us find our way to this public preview for 22.1, as well as to the Wwise community out there who we have engaged in these conversations and have been giving feedback, and to folks out there who will put their hands on this new editing workflow in the public preview available now. So thanks to everyone, and thanks Remi and Bernard for joining me today on the live stream. Cool.
Thanks for having us. It's fun.
All right. Awesome. Well, so back to this. We're going to go deep into the authoring side of other features that are available today as part of the Wwise 22.1 public preview. And this is just a small sampling of what we're going to go over now. I'm going to just jump right in. So you saw some of the layout and docking improvements. If you've worked with Wwise in the past, this will be a leap forward in the way that you can configure your different layouts for your workflows. The Project Explorer search, again, being able to type in place and have things have results returned to you and allow you to focus in on parts of the project that you need to get information about. Again, this natural search coming with text strings, allowing you to include or exclude, leveraging the Wwise authoring query language as part of that search, and having those results surfaced and highlighted in context. So imagine you need to find all of the objects that are using distortion in your project. Okay, there's a query for that, and you can very easily return all those objects as the results of that search. So we think that that's going to change the way that you navigate your properties and project. speaking of properties, we've added a new editor for the ability to paste properties from one object to an object or objects. So for the first time, you're going to be able to say, okay, the way that I've set this object up, I want to conform my project to the properties of that. And you have the ability to select, deselect what gets pasted to those target objects. And that also includes RTPCs and their curves and metadata right now. So if you have an object that's set up with a bunch of RTPC curves and you want to get that whole set of curves over to another object in your hierarchy as part of a different system, you can easily now leverage the paste properties editor to bring those between different objects in your project. This is going to be fun. And spatial audio is a continually evolving feature of Wwise that extends into the physical spaces of these worlds that we're creating. And historically, the settings for obstruction and occlusion have lived at the project settings scope of Wwise. And while that's still true, you still have access to those on a project-wide setting. We've also brought these curves into attenuations to allow you to either inherit those global project settings for obstruction and occlusion, or choose to override curves at an attenuation basis. And this is, again, feedback that we received from folks about how they're authoring with spatial audio using Wwise. And they just said, we want more control. We need that granularity afforded at an attenuation basis to be able to make decisions about how sounds are going to be transmitted or diffracted on an attenuation scope. And so we think this kind of affordance will really allow people to dial in the spatial audio in their experiences to a level of detail that matches their intention and creative goal. Other little usability and workflow improvements. We're just always thinking about, how we present Wwise and the level of accessibility that it takes to accomplish your goals on a daily basis. And so just some simple things like being able to set effects as an event action, bringing state and state group visibility to the set state event action. Just little things, because in the past it was a little opaque when we were presenting that information, so just getting a little more clarity on that. The transport is dynamic, can be stretched and squashed, and conforms to the size that you need it to be, while still presenting the different game syncs and their values that you need in order to update them as you're working. And then the ability to change the global filtering behavior at the project level. We had some developers reach out to us and say, the way that filters are added over time doesn't fit the implementation of our game and experience. It would be better if we could just use the highest value along that pipeline. And so now we've added that ability to set that on a project-wide basis in order to enable the different ways that people are working with Wwise in their developments. And something that we can never have enough of is contextual help. And so our capture log errors now come with a rich contextual information that helps you understand those errors by giving you not just information, but probable causes and recommended resolutions. So I think this speaks to every developer out there that sometimes you just don't know why. And so trying to give you that information when we can is core to this this contextual help that we're bringing to the Wwise 22.1 version. So in addition to that, if folks out there have been leveraging our Wwise authoring API or WAPI, we've made some updates to that, and you might be asking yourself, what's WAPI? Well, this is a way for developers to extend what is known by the project as part of their workflows by reaching in and using that information to extend their workflows. So dig into it. I know folks are getting excited about it, and we will continue to invest in that to allow people to extend what they do with Wwise and Wwise authoring outside of what's there by default. So a ton of new stuff there added to the core object set, a bunch of stuff you can dig into the documentation and find out more about. And additionally, we've done some performance updates to the Wwise authoring query language, so it's faster and more performant. And again, we see these as extensions of the way that people are working in Wwise that help to really empower what they're trying to accomplish at a scale that fits their needs. So dig into those tools and find out more about what's new. So let's talk about plugins. In Wwise 22.1, we've got a plugin API update. From 22.1 moving forward, plugins will not be backwards compatible. The source control API has now gained support for generated files, and we'll talk a little bit more about why that's falling in place. The Wwise plugin API, this is the last major release that supports the mixer plugin architecture. In favor of object processor plugins, which have been available since 22.1 with the release of the object-based pipeline, this is what should be used moving forward for folks who were leveraging mixer plugins. So while there's no major changes to the authoring API, there are some notable changes, and for folks who are out there creating plugins, definitely reach into the documentation when you install 22.1 to get a clear idea of what those changes are. So with that, reflect. This is our early reflections effect plugin that's available to create that dynamic early reflections and get, by getting information from the geometry in the world and creating that believable kind of sound representation, dynamic based on the world as it is. And we've made huge improvements to the accessibility of Reflect in 22.1. The Reflect plugin now brings forward information about the attenuation that the sounds running through the plugin are using, shows the source of where those curves are coming from, and then provides you the ability to override those settings and get specific about the curves that Reflect uses in relation to those attenuations. So this has been really fun as I've run through and started authoring in the Wwise Adventure game. Not currently released with updates to Reflect, but you could try it today. Get in there and really just feel your way through what this flexibility lends to Reflect and the way things sound in response to the environment. The other piece of that is that we added in the ability to warp the distance and diffraction of these curves to emphasize or de-emphasize the reflections. And this is really speaking to the idea that, we don't always want things to sound real. We want things to sound the way that we think they should sound. And so this warping controls give you easy access to tune things to the way you expect them to sound without necessarily having a direct relation to the attenuations and the way that those are set up. So we think that these are accessible changes that help you reach for those creative and realistic goals that you have when you're leveraging dynamic early reflections. The time stretch in Wwise has gotten some improvements. We got a new higher quality stretch mode that preserves the transients. It's better sounding, allows us to give you a slider for quality, pitch shift, and pitch shift randomization. These are things that people have been asking for as part of our time stretch, as well as a new optional stereo processing for the new stretch mode that handles stereo imaging a little better. So no matter how you're using it, these improvements bring great flexibility and just allow you to reach for those sounds that you're hearing in your head and create these worlds that we experience. The last thing on the plugin docket today is our 3D audio bed mixer. And for folks who have been out in front with Wwise 21.1 authoring with audio objects, some of the feedback that we've been receiving is how can I optimize audio objects as they're flowing through the Wwise pipeline? And so our answer to that is this 3D audio bed mixer plugin, which you can add to an audio bus and gives the ability to optimize the flow of audio objects through a bus by sending things to the main mix or pass-through mix when that's where they're meant for, as well as providing a limit to the system eligible audio objects that arrive to that bus. So if this is all just a little bit woohoo, then jump in and start wrapping your head around the audio object pipeline in Wwise. We have some great videos on YouTube, some great blog posts, and folks are really getting going with this new format of 3D audio. And the 3D audio bed mixer hopes to meet them where they're authoring by providing this opportunity to optimize that moving forward. So again, thanks for folks' feedback on that, and we're excited for this to land in your pipelines at the end of this year. Get your hands on it now. Let us know how it works, and let us know what you think. So the last thing I want to cover today is performance. And this is something that is core to the heart of audiokinetic and audiokinetic development. We know that the things that people are reaching for in these experiences they're creating, they have a cost at runtime, CPU, performance. And so we're always working to optimize what it takes for Wwise to run on both modern platforms as well as low-level platforms. And so with that, we've made huge strides towards optimizing our RTPCs. So you should be able to create more real-time parameters, more dynamic properties that can modify your sounds in real time. We don't want to be the limitation for you, and so we've optimized that system to provide that. Similarly, on the spatial audio side of things, we've brought our raycasting and diffraction performance into a place where we'll continue to evolve it, and we will continue to allow for people to reach for spatial audio as a tool, a technique, and as a way to support their experiences. And lastly is our task manager, which just fundamentally allows for the increased performance of Wwise across all platforms, and really should be measured by each team to understand the significant improvements for each of their delivery platforms. So that kind of brings us up to where we are today. We're here in the spring of 22 with our first public preview. It represents the hard work of all of the teams at Audiokinetic. towards presenting you with the ability to get your hands on the authoring and sound engine of our 22.1 release. And so we hope that you will join us as part of this, and as we're continuing to move forward, and bring your feedback to us. Bring us your experience so we can continue to evolve Wwise where you are. Jump into the launcher, log in, and download the 22.1 public preview. Accessible from the Wwise tab, drop down to the special flag and get it installed. Get the documentation and check out the what's new for the 22.1 public preview. That will give you an oversight of what I've talked about today in a text on the screen kind of format. So just dig in and try this stuff. I'm super excited to bring it to the community and hope you can put your hands on it. Do not migrate your production to a preview or beta version of Wwise. It's best practice to use this as an evaluation version. Give us feedback about it, because we're actively working to bring that feedback right into development. And we have a history of listening here at Audio Kinetic, both to the incredible output of developers using Wwise and creating interactive experiences in the community, but also through our feedback channels. So please find a way to carry that information back to us, and do not plan to ship with this public preview. Take the survey. It should be tied into the installation right here in the question mark drop down. And yeah, we want to hear from you. And that's it. Thank you so much for persisting through this public preview. It's a little hiccups at the beginning, but it's good to be able to share this with you. It's been a long time coming, and I think I speak for everyone at Audio Kinetic when I say we are very excited for you to give this a try and let us know what you think. So that's what we have for today. Keep your eyes and ears peeled for future Wwise Up On Airs. We'll be talking with developers over the summer about cool things they're doing with Wwise. You can expect some more Wwise Up On Air hands-on with some of these features as we continue to bring the subtleties and the details about what we're doing with Wwise to the community. So smash those likes, hit the subscription button, whatever folks do these days to stay in touch across socials and otherwise. It's, again, I'm glad to be here and share this with you, and hope you continue coming back to hear about the cool things that we have in store for you. So in the meantime, let us know what you think. Drop us a line, and we'll see you next time on Wwise Up On Air.